If you're going to pick some place to die, then why not Mars?
Okay.
You know, if we're born on Earth, why not die on Mars? Seems like maybe it'd be kind of exciting. But so I think, given the choice of dying on Earth or dying on Mars, I'd say, yeah, sure, I'll die on Mars.
Father, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. Give us each our daily bread, and forgive us our sins. For we ourselves forgive everyone who is indebted to us. And lead us not into temptation.
Okay, I certainly hate to kill that track in the middle of it. This is mostly a test, a successful test, so you know. I've been trying to plug into Instagram. I found an application called Yellow Duck. And so this was a test run. I finally got it right. So we're multicasting and we're now on Instagram. And that song Pope Elon by One-Eyed Jack and the Shells came to mind because someone sent me this today. On the left you have Werner von Braun, and on the right you have Walt Disney, and then right above it, corresponding t-shirts, NASA, with a little imagination, anything is possible. Disney. Because Disney is mostly a NASA production. Rather, I'm sorry, NASA is mostly a Disney production. Your concept of space really came from Disney before NASA gave it to you. That's how they prepped people. UC Jean says, salute to the room. Full as Bum says, Merry New Year. Yeah, Happy Christmas. Hail Saturnalia. And whatever else you may or may not practice. And for you atheists, you know, bah humbug. I mean, you probably are still, on some level, worshipping this beast matrix. And I think that Kim Jong-il is supposed to nuke us tonight. Rusty got an IG notification. Interesting. Well, like I said, I've never Instagrammed before. I'm not into selfies. I don't have I can't do the trout pout, so I wouldn't fit in. No, I'm just kidding. I know it's a misconception that all they do is selfies, but that's how I think of it when I think about Instagram. Okay, so we have a lot of great stuff to go over today. First of all, remember, don't forget to say Merry Yawahashimas to Ronnie and Johnny Laughing Bird up there in Canada. A couple friends of the channel. These guys have been followers of mine for a couple of years. Critics, I should say. I think they called me a Satanist. They call anybody. This guy on the right, Johnny Laffenberg, calls his mom a Satanist because she is a Catholic. It's pretty bad how divisive these people are. But anyway, shout out to Ronnie and Johnny up there at Brokeback Mountain, Canada. Oh yes, thank you to Deaf Mike for the stickers, the dank stickers. We have an official Fepe sticker on DLive, so now it lives. It's like AI. Like, good luck getting rid of that. Good luck hiding that penguin. Okay, so much happening right now. I want to start from really scratch here. So we've been calling out the deep fakers, and if you listen to myself and John LeBon, the second hour or third hour, we talked about this in depth. In fact, I really ought to send an email out immediately to the patrons because, you know, that's what it's for. So look, I'm going to be right back. This is Neo mode. And just basically share the stream. I'll be back in like 3 minutes.
Yeah, the globe is in my home. The globe is in my home. Globe, globe. They're telling me the globe is my home. I'm too infinite, 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 infinite. Globe is in my home. The globe is in my home. Telling me the globe is my home. The globe is in my home. The globe is in my home. I'm too infinite. I'm too infinite. I'm too infinite. And I'm killing it. I'm killing it. I'm drilling it. And I said it's fake as shit. Yeah, I was in the basement. Now I'm in the spaceship, cause it's fake shit. Got on my camera, and I'm guiding the challenger. I'm smashing the actress, cause I saw that NASA is. Space isn't real, the stars are a spirit, and I'm trying to do it real. I'm counting it. I'm trying to show space is so fake. Nobody can relate. So infinite, yeah. I'm so infinite, 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 infinite. Oh, 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 I'm so different, different, different.
All right, there we go. I just shared it to everyone on Patreon. Thanks to those of you who've been following it. And like I said earlier, those of you who were on that list, you got to see or listen to the second half of the conversation with John LeBon, where we went into depth about this deepfake topic. And so here's an example of what I am suggesting is damage control, where suddenly the Currys are in the news because people are making, quote, deepfakes of them. That is, putting their faces on other people's bodies. Now, I haven't seen these examples, but it was trending on Instagram. And they're like, oh no, this isn't them. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting, because last week, if you had done a search, Aisha Curry deepfake, you would have found juxtapositions of she and Miley Cyrus. But now you get this BS story. That's how they diffuse anything that we're covering up. Okay, next. Just wanted to show you another crisis actor. And he's going to make a great president, judging by the way he sprayed whipped cream into the mouths of his followers there on opening night. This is Andrew Wang proposing personalized guns as a way to stem violence. Just another preposterous idea. He's the guy who has the living wage thing, which, it's fine with me. Anyway, here's an interesting little example, though, of what I'd consider to be crisis acting. So he'll make a great crisis actor in chief. No tears.
3-year-old boy, I was imagining.
Great mic control for crying. And look, I don't know that this guy is a deep faker. Somebody brought it up the other day. We talked about it, and they're like, yeah, I swear that this guy is Joe Rogan in a silicone suit and face mask. And like, well, maybe, but I looked at it closely. I really did. And there is an interview they have, which could be faked, admittedly, but honestly, I just don't think you could cram Rogan's skull into this guy. There's a big problem there. But anyway, just an example. He cries for the camera and immediately just changes. It's an act. A great mic control for someone having an emotional meltdown. He said, imagine having a 3 and a 6-year-old, which if I was Zachary Hubbard, I would say, 3, 6, 6, 6, a little Masony there. Anyway, he talks with Scarborough about personalized guns and everything else. He'll get the votes if he can get this $1,000 a month thing going, which I'm really not opposed to. Look, here's a new bullshit career path for you if you want to go massively into debt and if you want to exit reality altogether. astrobiology. Humans are going to ruin outer space. This is from Futurism. International conflicts are the norm, and groups with power will exploit it to those without. And we inflict damage on the environment. And this just goes about how the way that we are approaching space is going to be problematic if we approach it the way we approach the way that we share the world, the way we treat it. And America's already a pariah because we're the ones who do all the polluting. And I've been suggesting for a while that they be going this route, that the coming war in space will be a war over who controls the heavens. And the heavens today are more or less going to be defined, and I say heavens, it's basically interchangeable with outer space. But how we all move together into the new age has yet to be determined. Is it going to be led by capitalists who want to go mine asteroids and bring that wealth back down to Earth? Or is it going to be done in a greener fashion with a focus on sustainability and collectivism? And it just so happens to be that the other nations of the world, the other spacefaring nations, China and Russia included, are on the green side of things. They're naturally on the green side because they're communists. And China has been pretty critical of Musk and Bezos. I don't think they like the idea of deep space industries or any of these other companies like Planetary Resources bringing down trillions of dollars in wealth because it would destabilize their system. And I've already seen the new tree huggers. I'd call them asteroid huggers. They show up whenever Jeff Bezos speaks and they say, you can't rape the universe. Like, these people will chain themselves to asteroids if they get the chance. So this war in space, it's an ideological war. More like 9/11 was about war in heaven, the Islamic heaven versus the Western heaven. And this war in space is kind of the same thing. Is it going to be capitalist? Are we going to be, quote, raping the universe? Or is it going to be collectivist, sustainability first? Are we going to turn Mars into Earth? And they're already having these discussions. They're wargaming it in all the science fiction, but in all the fake science, they're also bringing these questions up. And this is all basically the same type of mind control programming that the church used to demonize wealth and property, because that's ultimately how they make you a slave. So you can't take your wardrobe with you to the moon. You can't take your dog. You can't take your home. The rich man can't enter the heavens any more than a camel can walk through the eye of a needle. They have created this transcendent utopian place, but you got to leave behind everything of this world. So here you have these shysters, astrobiologists, no such thing. Humans are going to ruin outer space. Like, being an astrobiologist is as connected to reality as being a sociologist of Middle Earth. We talk about orcs and how they relate to trolls. Like, it's completely bogus. It's based on fantasy. Humans are going to ruin outer space. It's all part of the programming, though. Listen to this. The historic bad blood between the United States and Russia has not deterred the nation's scientists from working together in the ISS, including teams from China and Iran, Japan, Australia, Canada, and other nations. So this is the new Tower of Babylon, of course, which I wouldn't be surprised if they pull it, like they pulled Tower 7. I mean, all the nations, one tongue, collectivizing, going from the earth into the heavens. It seems like a valid comparison. And right now, I think we're at the point where there's a major fundamental ideological divide between how we progress into the new age. And that's what I think is going to be the subject of the space war. Personally, I'm predicting that Russia and or China will take down the space station as a provocation. It makes sense, but we'll see. We shall see. Okay, let's move on a few other topics. Italian exorcist says society's collapse is due to aggressive Satanism. I've been noticing some things, and I'm kind of writing a long article on this. Basically, I've noticed how people fear the skies depending on where they stand on the political spectrum, but they all fear the skies. Far left fears climate change and asteroids. Far right fears God or nukes from North Korea. And then people in the center tend to fear chemtrails and alien invasions, or simulated alien invasions that are just as bad. But everybody's scared of the sky, and I think that's fascinating. And also, I have a question. If you are a chemtrail truther, can you justify air travel? Will you fly to the next chemtrail convention, knowing that you're dumping barium and aluminum or whatever on the people below you? You're basically salting their crops, you're poisoning their kids while you're on the plane, and you help pay for the chemtrails that you're dosing them with. Like, what? I mean, I'm not trying to stretch it too much, but it's like, what if they put Zyklon B in chemtrails? Would you still fly? I don't have this problem because I don't believe in chemtrails. Let's see, a few other things. Oh yeah, Osiris Rex, King Osiris, the obelisk god, sun god, whatever. They claim that it actually touched down on the asteroid Bennu. So there's an asteroid out there that was going to kill us, but thanks to NASA, Osiris basically shot it down, kind of like a Patriot missile shooting down a Scud. Def Mike says barium, strontium, aluminum, and FLACA. Don't they put FLACA in the chemtrails? Look, this is a great idea, and I had actually discussed this before. Off-grid homesteads. This is a community called Freedom Cove. Man-made floating island that acts as a homestead. But it got me thinking about this idea, of course, of seasteading and space steading. I'm like, well, what if it's all real and you don't want to go with the communist program? Are they going to allow people to have any kind of freedom? And this is where I think it gets interesting. Where they're going to make the case, as they already have, that the free market incentivizing people to go to space is going to fill it up with space junk. It's going to create so many issues here on Earth by bringing in, it'll destroy the economic balance. It'll bring about catastrophe. So really what we're seeing, I think, is this notion of regulating migration, space migration, which we all know to be a farce, but it has other connotations as well. And look, something I realized too, and this is absolutely something I stand by now. If you believe we're on a spinning ball, you therefore must accept global warming. Just as sure as a Christian who is a Bible literalist must accept the judgment of God. God's got a bad side. You have to admit it. And so does the globe. And anyone saying that they don't believe in global warming is a denier of scientism. You're a scientism denier. Now, that's not the same as a science denier, which is what they call you if you don't believe in their scientism. But truly, what you have accepted in general is not a scientific proposition. So you kind of have to accept the whole thing, the whole book. You can't cherry pick. This is pretty good. This is something to add to keeping up with the crisis actors. The David Hogg meme compilation, and this is one of his salutes. I'm only going to play about 20 seconds of it, but I think you'll like it if you're a fan of this particular acting troupe.
And we will change the world.
Do you know somebody with autism? Autism is much, much more common than most people think.
God bless America. We can and we will change the world.
You're not you when you're hungry. Snickers satisfies.
God bless all of you and God bless America. We can and we will change the world.
There's one more I think that's pretty good where he's got a gun. Oh, here we go. But anyway, I'll play this first, but
Change the world.
I liked him better as Adam Lanza. Greta was on Ellen, which I don't know. I have nothing bad to say about Greta. Obviously, it's just a prop. But Ellen is there really to push a lot of the crisis actors. Very, very shady character. This is a new thing. It's Big Think, where mass producing robot clones has already started. And this is a company making these humanoids. They're promising a few things, but this one has 600 micro expressions. It's far more expressive than, I'd say, Sophia. Moving parts, has a number of uses, but of course it doesn't walk yet. But it is getting to be, I think, to the point where, yeah, you could probably replace cashiers at this point. Maybe that'll happen. Looks like Snoop Dogg, and this is kind of funny. Snoop Dogg trolled Jussie Smollett with this meme, basically calling it phony, which is kind of fascinating how Snoop Dogg is also, deep in the PSYOP industrial complex. So it's kind of funny that he would also make a joke about this one. And I'm not quite sure what to make about it. I mean, was this an intended hoax that was exposed, or was it a hoax that was scripted to be an exposed hoax, to maybe make it look like that if somebody pulls something off that looks fishy, the media will get to the bottom of it and expose it. So he's kind of like a scapegoat. So it's like, hey, see, we don't pull off psyops. We expose the Jussie Smollets among us. I think that might be the actual purpose here. That Jussie Smollett is kind of doing damage control by pretending to be getting caught. Kind of like the guy in the Los Angeles sniper situation who was shot. And then later it was reported that it was fake, and that he had faked his injury. And again, it kind of takes the heat off of these accusations that we're looking at, well, staged and phony events. I came across a couple of weird things here regarding The Weeknd. I want to show you really quick. It has to do with an Adam Sandler movie that's just opening up. Okay, so it's called Uncut Gems. And in Uncut Gems, there's a prop that is actually called, and this is taking place in New York's Diamond District right now. You can go see The Weeknd's wig. Early era Weeknd hairpiece circa 2000 to 2002. Now, I don't know what you want to make of it. I mean, is it a prop in a movie? Is it a joke? Possibly. I want to see if anybody else has written about this thing yet. I want to get to the bottom of it. It's just a little bizarre. Here we go. Uncut Gems. This was from... Here we go. A review of the exhibit. Anyway, The Weeknd's wig is up on display there, which I thought was kind of weird. We'll look into that some more. Also, I did a little more research on Dabu 7 as I was talking to John LeBon about how it was suggested to me that Heath Ledger was a death faker who had then been basically reassigned to do work in alternative media as kind of a doomsayer, playing a paranoid conspiracy theorist. So this is Dabu 7. And again, you're dealing with the best actors. So if their voice doesn't sound the same, that shouldn't confound you for very long. And this would be Heath Ledger, bald. And so what I'm doing is I'm comparing them, their head shaved, or pretty close. And I'd say the ears are very close, the nose is very close, general facial structure, sure. I don't know how it got started. I really don't, but the rumor's been around for about 4 years now. Maybe 5 years now. And there is some actual narrative subtext that might support this, though. So it's kind of worth digging into. That's why I spent a few minutes looking at pictures. And yeah, it could very well be the case that we do have another repackaged death faker, now deep faking, in the alternative media. I could be wrong. I mean, he's welcome to call in. Like, this is Dabu 7, and I'm not Heath Ledger. Netflix courts controversy with Middle East thriller Messiah. Yeah, they're making Jesus into a character in a number of movies. There's another one here, causing all kinds of outrage in Brazil. I don't know why. Netflix show portraying Jesus as gay sparks anger in Brazil. It's like, you mean he's not gay? Anyway, they say it's blasphemy or something. But if you go by the priesthood and how they act, I mean, what do you think it would be? A Boeing CEO asked to step down. There was some type of a flop related to sending a rocket up to the space station. It didn't go well. And I kind of think, Boeing, of course, is offering all the engineering support to the ISS. I think we're starting to see hints about what's to come. I really do. And I've been seeing a few other things as well regarding a coming possible space war, contention between Russia and China versus America. And remember, where are the polluters? Where the problem here? I'm pretty sure I have it. And then, of course, this is not how I remember it. It's a Christmas story meme. I wanted an official Red Ryder carbine action 200 shot range model air rifle. A BB gun, are you serious? The cops will show up and kill you. I thought he said, you'll shoot your eyes out, kid. I don't know how you guys remember it. Apparently that's a Mandela effect. If you remember it as, you'll shoot your eyes out, kid, it's a Mandela effect. And they say that I'm affected because of it. Because I guess it officially they say, a BB gun, you'll shoot your eye out, like singular eye. I remember a plural, and so do tens of thousands of Mandela affected people out there. And really, you can't argue with numbers like that, can you? Hey, this is pretty good. Wise bowl cut kid. That's what I've dubbed this particular meme. My liberal teacher said that guns kill people. I said, well then, my pencil caused my bad grades. I think this is actually Dylan Roof. Before he this one can think. Let's go ahead and recruit him to serve Big Brother. We should put him side by side. No, actually though, Dylan Roof is an actor. I think they've actually outed him. Now that I think about it, look, Dylan Roof acted on, of all things, Seinfeld. Hopefully, I can find it. Yeah, I can find it. Now, this is in Snopes, which means it's probably true. Snopes is like Guardrail 101, the very basic stuff. They do a really cursory debunking of every conspiracy the second it's published. Yeah, here we go. Convicted Charleston shooter Dylan Roof, and Dylan Storm Roof is a totally fake name, is a child actor John Christian Grass. The convicted Charleston church shooter Dylan Roof led to the recirculation of rumors that he's a former child star and crisis actor named John Grass. Now, knowing what you know, knowing that this is fake, as in the Charleston shooting was fake, knowing this to be a fact, why is it such a stretch to even, posit that, yeah, he's a child actor? And of course, their debunking is pretty weak. It just says blah, blah, blah. Crisis actors, Trump voters, QAnon. They just try to diffuse what you're saying. But no, we're actually correct about this one. Adam Lanza isn't Adam Lanza. He's basically an actor who played Adam Lanza and then got another role as David Hogg for very particular reasons. Very specific reasons. Someone sent me this Jesus meme, corporate American Jesus. Yeah, if you could go ahead and buy me as much crap as you can for my birthday, that'd be great. He's not so much a sacred cow anymore. I really don't know why people are getting so upset about this gay Jesus thing. Now, if you haven't had a chance to check out the second half of that talk with John the Bond, you ought to. Here's a link, and this is where I do explain why I think it's likely that Justin Bieber is playing the weekend, or the reasons why you might be led to think so. And as we went through these, he actually paused and edited and spliced in the video that he produced, of our talk, examples of the two side by side talking. And he found an article where they talked about how the weekend pretty much didn't exist and nobody knew who he was until like 2 years ago. A few other things worth noting. No one had seen his arms until he was 29. Could you imagine hiding your arms until you're 29? And when you finally show them, it's only from the forearm down. I mean, isn't that kind of an odd thing? This is Orwell. The ruling class in every age tried to impose a false view of the world upon their followers. So this is where I kind of return to the chemtrail thing. See, I'm starting to think that fear of above you, fear of the sky, is part of the basic template. And I think they need everyone to fear the sky. And so whether it's God or some scientific explanation for why you should fear the sky, or it's chemtrails, I think in all these instances, I think that these are stories planted by the ruling class. That's why I don't trust them. When people say, oh, you should be afraid of this or afraid of that, I tend not to trust any of it. I consider the source especially. I don't trust death-faking comedians pretending to be truthers. I mean, do you? How many of you find death fakers, as a rule, to be trustworthy people? Like, I kind of don't. Yeah, that was George Orwell. Oh, Eric Blair. Is that his real name? Yeah, fear the sky. Does anybody here not fear the sky? Tell me why you're scared about the sky, and then I can pretty much tell you where you're going to vote, or if you're going to vote. If you say, well, yeah, I fear the Lord, I'm like, okay, vote Trump. Well, I fear climate change and asteroids, obviously. Haven't you heard Greta? Yeah, you're going to vote Clinton. And you're like, well, I don't really fear God, and climate change is a hoax, but yeah, weather modification, geoengineering, bro, leaked documents, bro, chemtrails. They're spraying us. Okay, I gotcha. You're a centrist, and you're probably not going to vote. And that's pretty much like it. Is there anybody here who doesn't fear the sky? I mean, you have a few people who might not fit on the political spectrum, but they do have the same essential worldview, and it's the worldview, I think, that's authored by the oligarchs. Like, these are standard things. I also did a bit of research into 5G, and I'm starting to think that 5G towers aren't so scary, even at their worst, because they don't have the range they need to zap you. And so the new rage is 5G boxes in your house are now scary. So I don't know. I mean, on a sliding scale, I mean, if you had like a scale of like scary appliances, where would you rate your 5G box? You know, between the microwave, your smartphone, and like a hair dryer or something. Like, what is it with this? Is it what, technophobia? Flat Life says Wakey Wakey did a good video regarding the climate hoax. Well, the climate hoax has been exposed for decades, but it's been exposed for the wrong reasons. I mean, they're exposing it as, you know, fake science to advance something, but they never dispute the basic premise of, well, the globe or the pictures that they give us. They really don't dispute any of it. It's to the point where if you're rejecting climate science, it's pretty much just an argument from, I don't trust you guys. It's a rejection. And is it a rejection of evidence? It depends on what you consider evidence. Like, we wouldn't consider it to be evidence. America First King says, I hope 5G will not hurt us, but if I do... Well, look, people were afraid of flip phones. And people said, oh, I'll never get a flip phone. I don't want Big Brother to track me and give me brain tumors. Then 9/11 happened, and everybody bought a flip phone. Immediately. In case another 9/11 happened, they would be able to call their loved ones. I mean, every time you look at a crisis actor, and I call this the international sign of the crisis actor, they always have their hand up to their head, and they're always crying into a phone. That's a very common thing that you see with them. And this is to recall 9/11, where you just saw these people screaming into their phone, like, hey, they got us, you know, whatever. It was so scary. And then suddenly you needed to be, you know, on the phone. Def Mike says DNA strands start breaking down at 55 to 60 gigahertz. Possibly. Like, I really question all this stuff. I really do. Like, if you could prove it, prove it. And that's what I would like to do. Like, maybe we should do a class action suit. Say, hey, the 5G towers have had some really bad effects on me, like neurologically. Ever since you put these things up, I started thinking the world's flat. And we could all do it. We could say it. We could just basically say, yeah, it scrambled my neocortex. And I'm also, you know, it's pretty much your word against theirs, I guess. But I kind of doubt it, because the same people who are afraid of 5G towers were probably afraid of flip phones, were probably afraid of the internet. Every new innovation, brings with it, a few new things to fear. And people are barely catching up to 5G, and I think if you're really trying to hype that up, maybe you should hype the fear about 10G. Like, what makes you think they're going to ramp it up right now? They make it sound like they're just going to turn on the tower, and it's just going to basically be human bug zappers everywhere. And that was a plan all along. Def Mike says, I can grab reports from Sweden for the testing. Leaves turn brown faster when doused in 5G. The reason I tend to doubt stuff like this is simply that, if true, you could pretty much really make a name for yourself as a scientist or whatever, just by bringing it to people's attention. Like look what I discovered. Like, it's monumental. And if it is such a thing, and you are being damaged by it, well, then maybe you do a bit of a settlement. That's kind of where I'm at with it. Same thing with chemtrails. People will talk about what they fear so much, but they never actually produce evidence that this thing that they fear is real. They never do. So I would like to look at the reports. I don't dismiss them out of hand, but if that's a fact, then wouldn't that be something that every single person should know? Oh, by the way, your 5G tower is going to be turning your leaves browner. It's going to have other effects. It's getting to the point where I'm starting to doubt if fluoridated water is even that bad. Like, they say if you drink it, it'll pacify you and you won't resist Big Brother or whatever. It's like, well, maybe it'll kind of temper me out a bit, take the edge off of the coffee or something. I'm going to drink some fluoride, at least over the holidays, just so I can relax a little bit. I'll be a little more apathetic. Like, is it really going to do, if I take a shot, like one shot of fluoridated water, am I going to lose a few IQ points? Like, what's really going to happen? Because I remember drinking fluoridated water when I was in the military. Had no choice out of those gross plastic canteens. And I don't think it really messed with me that much. But I could be wrong. Like, maybe I'm just like a shell of what I could have been had I not been, doused with fluoride and all the anthrax vaccines. All right, let's continue. Someone sent this video to me. They said, I've been on the fence for years about about Bill Hicks and Alex Jones.
It goes in.
And look, there's no excuse for being on the fence about it. If you keep calling him Alex when you know he's Bill, then you're basically saying that you're on the world stage and like you should know better. So yeah, this is Bill, and this is a video by the Brotherhood. Pretty good channel. There's a link right there. And here he is just doing a sample just to show you that, yeah, it's the same dude.
And looks like it.
Can anybody dispute that? Anybody at all? Really. This is the Brotherhood. Great channel, just simple overlay. Now, some overlays don't do it. It's really easy to put two faces that are close, and your mind will fill in the blanks like it does when you're looking at animations, where the cartoons aren't really moving, but your eye is, not able to keep up with the rate, and it connects the dots. And so if you put one picture over another and you fade one out, sometimes it might actually give you a false positive. But this one's great because there are lines in the forehead, on the face, on the chin that align perfectly.
Looks like it.
Really, just put a mullet wig on him. Like, that's pretty much him. And I think to distract from this, they had Alex grow a beard. I want to see if he does any other shots. There's not much more you need here. It's there. It's so clear. I mean, there are numerous other reasons for reaching this conclusion. Let's take a look at the comments. Can't Get Right says this is a no-brainer. They called him Bill a couple of times on his show. Yep, I've heard that. Uncool Ben says thanks so much for that. Have a great Christmas. Same Bish. By the way, samebish.com. Yep, samebish.com. We have a number of deep faking examples. Look, 79% of the people who've looked into the Adam Lanza David Hogg connection agree with me. And a few people are on the fence. Very few definitive no's. Let's move on. Can you do a Nicole Brown Simpson and Megyn Kelly, the news reporter? And that one's a no-brainer, and there's a great deal of narrative support for this one as a framework. It does make sense. It makes sense that a woman playing the murder victim in this racially tinged trial, which is designed to inflame intercommunal tensions, would then get repackaged and be a professional race baiter on Fox News. Like, obviously. I mean, these people are there to stir the pot. And so Nicole Simpson becoming Megyn Kelly, no question. My only question is this actress actually married to OJ? Because, he didn't serve time in prison, so where was he, right? So I have this theory that the basement of Megyn Kelly's house is made up to look like a jail cell, and that they've been living together this whole time. So if you were to go to Megyn Kelly's house and go to the basement, you might find OJ Simpson. I mean, that's my theory. It doesn't have to be. I mean, it could all just be made for TV, which is most likely. Everything is a conspiracy. It says, I saw one about Billie Eilish and Lil Xan. Yeah, that one's interesting. Could be. If you can imagine Billie Eilish putting a mouthpiece in and some face tats, I guess, but John Benet Ramsey, Kate Perry, there's a counter to that one, because this one was actually tackled by the mainstream news. But, my question is, how hard is it to really create childhood photos? It's easy. If you look at how many of these psyops work, a lot of them just involve making people, fake people. In fact, there's a website, I think it's called thesepeopledonotexist.com or something like that, where it just does believable face mashups and creates people that don't exist. Let's see, 73838 says, I've never seen the world the same. Years ago, reptilians were running this human farm. We are the fruits they clone underground. They eat children, and the reset is when they harvest us. I wouldn't draw that conclusion, from all this. I think this deep fakery is basically the reason why we have stories about reptilians and clones. They want to obfuscate the truth. And what better way to obfuscate the truth than surround it with stuff that would make people, the average people, just totally incredulous. Ticky Nitty Baby says, and they do with Sandy Hooks with a fake people maker. Oh, no doubt. With the Sandy Hook in particular, and this was exposed by Jim Fetzer before they shut down his blog, where he found that there were plenty of reasons to think that some of these so-called, dead kids were actually just the childhood photos of the adults, the crisis actors. So it would be like if you took, let's say you took your childhood photos, your preschool photos, whatever, and then you Photoshop that into a photo of you today at a barbecue or something. You could say, yeah, that's my kid, and David Hogg shot him. And, who's going to dispute that? No one. I know this doesn't have anything to do with anything, but this is a munchkin kitten. It sleeps on its back like this. I don't know if all munchkins do it, or if, but maybe it's because of the short limbs. I just recently got onto Instagram, and it's like the first thing I found. But I am on Instagram. It's Tim_Osman, and I will be live streaming there as well. So that's another place to get notifications. I kind of want to open phones. A few other things, though, I think we have to go over. Oh, yeah, here we go. Check this out. This is from yesterday. Beijing warned the U.S., and this is on Monday, that we're turning the cosmos into a, quote, battlefield after the new military arm called the Space Force was announced in Washington. It says, following concerns that China and Russia are challenging its position in space, U.S. President Donald Trump signed the 2020 NDAA on Friday, creating the new branch. Just bringing this up, I called this last year. I said China and Russia, China and Russia are going to be the antagonists in the next 9/11 event. And one of the reasons why I think we're being set up for one is PNAC. The whole PNAC thing had to do with a catalyzing event to bring us into this world war and bring about this world police state, create the total surveillance slash inquisition which we have today. And they pulled it off with 9/11. That was their new Pearl Harbor. Well, in that same boardroom, they talked about China and Russia not signing the dotted line on certain outer space treaties having to do with anti-satellite ballistics. So they didn't sign on to it. They didn't agree. Therefore, they were put there on the stage as potential threats in the coming space war. So then, you look at how much time went into the 9/11 event, which moved us into a new stage. Well, the space war would do the same, because what this means is our Tower of Babylon falls, space station probably goes, the cooperation breaks apart, and now it's contested area above. Who's going to control outer space? Who's going to dictate how we approach space migration? And will it be, direct democracy, communism, or will it be something else? Basically, I think it's set up to be triggered by some event, and I kind of suspect it will be, and this is just my guess. Here's why I think. Basically, I think that they're going to bring down the space station. It's been 33 years since the Challenger explosion, and if you think about it, the 9/11 event was probably planned the day they started building the towers 33 years before they pulled them. That was also the year that 9/11 became the national emergency number. So, I'm still on this. I'm still of the opinion that we're going to see this Tower of Babylon fall 33 years since the Challenger explosion, and it will signify this new war, which will be not just in outer space, which we know is fake, but it'll be in cyberspace. I mean, they might just say, hey, by the way, every iPhone ought to be considered a Chinese spy. I mean, it could be that bad. I mean, I'm not doomsaying, but that's just how I envision it. I don't believe that the space wars are going to be UFOs or simulated UFOs. I think it's just going to be something more mundane, more Psy-war. I actually, looking back at Wernher von Braun, his little take on things in the future, supposedly, what he supposedly said on his deathbed to his assistant, that we would be enduring basically climate chaos as a means to unify the world, asteroids, and a UFO invasion. He mentioned these things. Well, I kind of think the alien invasion might have been the original 9/11. I mean, why would they need anything else? Yeah, illegal alien invasion. Why would you literally need the theater? That's just obfuscation. So going off of that, yes, I do kind of suspect that China and Russia might shoot down the space station. And one more reason I think so, last year at this time, and I'll pull this up, an astronaut butt dialed 9/11 from space, which is completely implausible. It shouldn't have happened. I mean, how would that happen? Wrong number. Here's what happened when an astronaut called. Yeah, actually it says here. Dutch astronaut Andreas Kuipers mistakenly called 911. Numerous articles about it. I thought it was totally fake, but I thought, well, why would they do this? Well, if you remember, The 9/11 scripted event was predicated by a whole lot of planted references to it before it happened. So, what better planned reference to a space 9/11 and possibly bringing down the space station than the guy dialing 9/11? And this was shortly after there was a hole in the ISS that they said was created by a drill. And I'm like, that's interesting. Created by a drill. Like somebody accidentally drilled a hole, which kind of started a little bit of intrigue where people were saying, was this sabotage? Was this some type of a... Look at this here. Someone drilled a hole in the ISS. Was this a mistake or sabotage? It says astronauts undergo psychological background checks. And it goes on to say it's unlikely that anybody would have done it. Was it a mistake or sabotage? This was September 4th, 2018. So this happened around the same time, and so I kind of look at this as, well, they're kind of suggesting something here. Cosmonauts drilling holes, dialing 9/11 from space. And one more thing that I think might tie into this was the year that we had the guy in the USA shirt, the 33-year-old, set himself on fire in front of the White House on the 33rd anniversary of when it happened before. Again, this type of theater in the news, the scripted news media, it's so phony, it's so fake. But just by judging, going off of what they're publishing, I'm pretty much still guessing that the ISS is going to be brought down soon. I don't hope it does. I don't hope it comes down. But I think it's going to. And what's more, I know it's fake. So I hope you all know that. I mean, I'm sure, there's 83 domestic terrorists listening right now. But you all know the ISS happens here on Earth. So, of course, anything they fake. And look, this is really good. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. I brought this up last week, but it's worth repeating. Joe Rogan has been one of the biggest critics of the people who are critical of the space program. And a couple months ago, he was watching a video of Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin rocket taking off. And he looked at the rocket and said, is that fake? Is that CGI? And the guy said, no, this one's real. Like, he couldn't tell. He had to watch it a few times to know it was real. And you could tell he was like, okay, that's weird because it looks so fake. Well, here's another example. This just happened where Joe Rogan is looking at a CGI rendering of a car. He doesn't know it's CGI and it trips him up.
It looks amazing. Jamie, can you make that bigger again? But that looks so real. That's crazy that that's not a photograph. Does that look like a render to you, Jamie?
I'm almost certain that's not a real car. I'm almost certain it's not a real car.
The tire looks a little... The tire looks fake?
I could be wrong. There could be someone screaming at their whatever right now saying I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure...
reflections in the windows.
They're good at this now. You played fucking Forza in the last 3 years? They're good at this, dude.
I mean, look at this. He can't tell the difference between a CGI car and a real car. We've caught him not being able to distinguish between a CGI rocket and a real one. And this is an interesting point here because I think we're undergoing a reformation today. And I think what we're actually going through is people who are becoming visually literate are seeing through a lot of the BS promulgated by the priesthood, its entire worldview. We're seeing through it because we're visually literate. The masses are visually illiterate. That's how they've managed to pull this off. So it looks to me like Joe Rogan is at this point where he has to consciously be aware now that he's calling fake things real. He has to be. And so this is an interesting point. Like, for example, many of the people who will defend the space station will nonetheless watch science fiction that looks far more realistic. And they don't allow themselves to perceive the discrepancy. Why does it look so real in the movies and so fake when the ISS does it? Marty Moose says Rogan used to be a moon hoaxer to the core. I think he still secretly is, but pressure makes him say it's real. Well, look, I think that there's a a problem with that proposition here. Anybody claiming the moon landing is a hoax and then being silenced helps to maintain the idea that the moon landing was a hoax. It actually gives it more credibility. And to me, that's misdirection. Yes, the moon landing was a hoax, but they leave you with the storyline, the guardrail line, that the moon landing was hoaxed to trick the Russians. The moon landing was hoaxed to win the space race. No one calling the moon landing hoax a hoax is out there saying, oh, by the way, the space race is a hoax. Russia helped with the fake moon landing. Nobody goes all the way. And I think that's where we need to go. I think we need to go all the way. So, for example, we've been talking about death fakers and deep fakers, people who are playing roles who aren't really who they say they are, one, and two, the same who are repackaged and put to work in a similar capacity or related role on the world stage. So here's an example. On the right, you have Yuri Gagarin, first cosmonaut, first man in space, quote, died in 1965 in an unexplained crash, a fiery crash. You know, there's your phoenix symbolism. So he dies and he's reborn as Neil Armstrong, first man on the moon. Same bitch. No doubt. So from the very beginning, America and Russia have been collaborating. This is a collaborative art project. Collaborative postmodern art. Let's turn the masses into brainwashed slaves. Let's reintroduce Mystery Babylon, but dress it up like the Jetsons so they don't notice, and then turn them into a bunch of communists over the next 5 generations. And look, it's worked. And this isn't the worst one. This isn't the worst one. I know this one might be a shock, but yes, Neil Armstrong was a damn hoax. Yuri Gagarin faked his death. And this is all symbolic. You all know that the people in the Challenger explosion didn't actually die because there was nobody in that dummy model that they sent up there on the blimps. They're actors, and they don't even hide it. They don't even hide. So we know they all do this, and it's all symbolic. The immolation, it's symbolic. You got the 3 astronauts burning on the launch pad. You got the first man in space burned. You have the Challenger people burning. And I'm saying we're about due for another immolation, another foundational sacrifice. Maybe the space station coming down would do it. And there's quite a lot of narrative structure to support this. Sergeant Peterson says, my brain is now pudding. No, your brain was already pudding if you thought that Neil Armstrong was a real person who actually walked on the moon. You were already pudding if you thought this thing was anything other than elaborate theater and obelisk worship. And that's the truth. The reason why they named the rockets after sun gods is that this is just sort of like a neo-Catholicism. You know, Catholic, universal. This is your one world religion. It's the old world religion, painted up like the Jetsons. And your Bezos and your Musk are your new world saviors. Those are your Martian popes. Because we're entering into the Martian age, according to Jack Parsons, Aleister Crowley, and really the entire cryptopsy. I mean, that's what we're going into, the age of Mars. And, you know, Mars, yeah, he's a war god, but he's an agrarian god. And I think this is an age where you all become propertyless potato farmers. I mean, you really ought to look at the NASA posters for, you know, join Mars, come to Mars, like be a farmer. It looks exactly like old school Soviet, like communist propaganda. I actually like it. I mean, it's cool art, but I mean, look at this here. We need you, and it's NASA instead of like Uncle Sam. But we need you, of course. They actually have ads up here basically saying, become a worker on Mars. Workers of the world unite and go to Mars. Work the night shift on the Mars moon. And how many of these sci-fi junkies who believe this nonsense actually want to go do physical labor in harsh environments? All right, let's see. Somebody said getting rid of the pudding one spoonful at a time. Look, you might have absorbed a lot of propaganda over the course of your lifetime. And just to save you a lot of time and trouble and reduce the amount of fear or stress that you may have, it's pretty much safe to say that all of the sensationalized, widely reported school shootings in the last 19 years have all been staged by the U.S. media in collaboration with the intelligence agencies and key personnel in law enforcement in order to systematically terrorize school students into voting Democrat in the 2020 election. Like they planned that long in advance. And like, well, we're not going to take their guns, but we can brainwash them. Charles Theron says Isaac Asimov is good reading. Yeah, that whole Foundation series, I think that was in the back of the Tesla Roadster that went to Mars. I mean, we all know it's fake, but Star Trek had an awesome episode that had the god Apollo on their ship, Marty Moose. Well, Star Trek was instrumental in basically providing the visuals that people would need to imagine themselves going to space. And like I said, it's all highly symbolic, but for the most part, they know that if you can sell people on the idea emotionally, they will never intellectually reconsider it. So, when it comes to Star Trek, they actually renamed your arc to Mars. Like if the world floods tomorrow because of melting ice caps, because your Republican friends drive SUVs, you're going to cram into the starship. That's what they actually call it. And you're going to go to Mars. And Mars has a plateau shaped like the Star Trek emblem. Full Metal Jacket says before that it was nukes. Oh yeah, people used to duck and cover. They used to duck and cover under desks. Now they duck and cover when, under the desks. Same thing. But I don't think there's anything different between ducking and covering for this drill or that. In fact, there are now, this is absurd what they're doing with these drills, like hyper-realistic drills. I used to make jokes saying, why do you have to engage in this theater for the incident of a school shooter? They're more likely to have a fire. Why not actually burn the building and have some crisis actors just, writhing on the ground and screaming? Maybe that'll help the kids. Well, they're actually doing that now. What they're crisis acting is really the place to be if you're an actor today. And there is money to be made there. But I think it's dog training. I think it's obedience training, ultimately. Like I said earlier, it's Stockholm Syndrome. 100% Stockholm Syndrome inducing these hyper-realistic school shooting drills where you're trauma bonding with the cops. You're trauma bonding with the people who are overhyping a non-existent threat to scare you out of owning guns, to demonize certain segments of the population. Shout out to the bowl cuts. Like that, this has been a protracted psychological operation in the schools targeting the youth. They've been doing this for almost 2 decades. And anyway, I said it's obedience training. It's trauma bonding. It's Stockholm Syndrome. And when I see people groveling before the gun or groveling before the nuclear warhead on that missile, it looks like people groveling in a mosque or groveling in a church on their knees. If you grovel, you grovel. You genuflect. We'll call it genuflect. And I think they want you to genuflect before the power of big government that rules you. So what they do is the governments create religions so you can worship this idol, which is actually a government proxy. Like, I kind of think that if you were to look closer at Jesus, you might see the face of Caesar. Same with all these religions. They're all proxies for the beast. And it goes the same for the atheists who believe in the scientific paradigm. If you're a heliocentrist, you're still saying hail Helios, hail the sun god, hail Caesar. You're still a government worshiper because you're buying into the entire paradigm. And if you fear nukes, well, you're still groveling before an obelisk in the power of the state because now you're threatened by that guy's obelisk, so you need your guy's obelisk to save you. and it has you ducking and covering. Charles Aron says, I don't want to derail, but do you agree that porn can't be banned just like guns and drugs? Well, anytime you talk about banning, you're talking about invoking the power of the state. You're talking about more regulation. So either you want big government or you don't. You either side with freedom or you don't. These are things which, who's going to regulate it becomes the question. Who's going to regulate it? I mean, how are you going to monitor it? What level of, and that also makes me wonder too. Like, if you're advocating for that, it makes me wonder too, is maybe the reason why there's such maybe why it's so prevalent out there is to create the outrage so people actually demand more censorship. Because I've noticed they do this. Like, for example, we've got many instances of people who go out in public and they say things that are politically incorrect. And they say it, I think, in order to sabotage the platforms that they're on. And so I think we're always being targeted with sabotage. And anytime people say, all right, we're going to go ahead and have to censor because these people are offended, it's like, well, then whose religion do we need to cater to? If you're offended by porn, guess what? I can find some people who are more offended by women who don't cover their hair. It's like, well, maybe we should just all put women in burqas. Like, really, if you want to ban porn, let's ban any type of image that might actually suggest a woman. So let's put skirts on the table legs. We're going to need some more fainting couches because this is like, you're talking about a society fit for church ladies. And I wonder how big of a problem it actually is. It's like one of these things where, like, it's not really a part of your life. I mean, people bring it up all the time in this chat. I hear people bring stuff up like this. And I'm like, well, who made this an issue for you right now? And will it be an issue for you in 6 months? Because I noticed too that people will glom onto an issue when it's being hyped because some politician is hyping it. Like, the gun grabbers were agitated this summer, then it became the climate change crowd. Def Mike says that chair leg needs a burqa. Oh yeah, absolutely. And this is another analogy here, though. I kind of think that these space communes, and this is all communist propaganda, it takes away your face. So now the ideal is a worker, not an individual. You don't have any property. You're working for the hive. And the face is gone. And now it's just a blank, it's just a blank piece of glass. You can't even see through it. It's completely opaque. And that's like a burqa. It's a life support system. You can't leave the hive because you will die. You need to keep it charged. All right, let's continue. Charles Theron says, I can't believe these porn ban people can't see they're just like the left wing wanting to stop guns. Oh, no, you're right. That's a very good point. So this is how you know that where the opinions are coming from. So it's like the people on the left want to ban guns. People on the right want to ban porn. And then people in the center are going to be the more libertarian who are like, everybody should have porn and guns. People on the right fear God. People on the left fear climate change. People in the middle fear aliens and chemtrails. Something in the middle. Now, I do agree that there are more important issues, though. Maybe one way to get rid of the problem, let's say that you're like really obsessed with this, like, well, this is such a huge problem. You just need to come up with something better. Build the better mousetrap. Make something more entertaining than what people are watching. That'll do it. Okay, let's continue. Oh, by the way, tomorrow night or maybe tonight, we're supposed to get nuked. And something else, North Korea, I should probably give a shout out to North Korea's sacred mother of the revolution. The deceased grandmother of the dictator has her own holiday, and it's Christmas. They actually created a holiday out there so they could celebrate Christmas, and they celebrate his mother's birthday, which is actually December 25th. But it was insinuated that we might actually have a nuke launched over from North Korea here very soon. Does anybody here believe in nukes? Because I did a video a couple days ago where you can find numerous articles where even mainstream sources are saying those rockets are floppy. They're bendy. That's obviously not real. Others will look at the rocket launches and they'll say, well, that's not recent. You can tell by where the stars are at. This is from 4 months ago. And then what's more, if you look closely at some of these takeoffs, it looks like the bad CGI that Jeff Bezos uses, which makes me think that Kim Jong-un is ordering his fake rocket blimps, his missiles, from Amazon. Like, do the Billionaire Blimp Club members, have access to these cylindrical blimps that they can use for rockets or for missiles? Like, I don't have access. I'm not on that level. Charles Theron says nukes are fake. What about North Korea? What about it? I mean, I don't use the word fake flippantly whatsoever. And I'm really mad that the media took that word from us. Well, no, Def Mike, here's what they're doing with the rockets. And this is something too. Okay, I should probably bring this up because this is going to be guardrailed. It's really good that, Owen Benjamin knows that the way that these rockets launch up is too slow. And it defies physics. And it's because these are balloons. They're cylindrical blimps with jet-assisted takeoff. They've been doing this for decades. And once it goes out of sight, out of mind, they switch to the CGI where it goes to, okay, well, now they're in space or whatever. And you see it real time. I mean, it's so phony. But they've been doing this for decades. So you all know this, I think. But it's a magic trick, more or less. But there's something else here that needs to be understood as well. One of the ways that they keep the people thinking that the space station is real, even though it looks corny and fake, is they do these ISS transits. So people like, and this is the strangest thing, people like Jeranism and deep inside the rabbit hole will go out at night and they'll film the space station and they'll say, I don't know what this means. Must be something up there shaped like the space station, but it's not the space station. And I'm like, what the hell are they doing here? They're presenting ISS transits, but when I look at the footage, it looks like a NASA scam where you have real footage and then they insert a shot, a close-up, and it's a close-up of the space station passing in front of the moon with no motion blur whatsoever. No motion blur, 17,000 miles per hour, and you can see details. Are you telling me that on an object, a moving object going 17,000 miles per hour, that at 272 miles away, I would be able to see through a P900 individual solar array? No way. They had way too much detail. So I'm just wondering, some of these people who might say, hey, look, NASA's using balloons, to fake rocket launches. At the same time, they're faking space station transits. You might want to look into that. There's like a system that they have in place to maintaining this illusion. And one of the ways that they maintain the illusion is, well, they need you to have visual evidence, at least once in a while. And the only place where you get visual evidence of the so-called area known as low Earth orbit is with the ISS transits. That's why they fake them all the time. They fake them. And some people will say, well, I've seen the space station cross over my house at midnight. And I'm like, no, actually it can't. If you do see it, if it were even possible, it would only be near sunset and sunrise. Otherwise, it would be in the shadow of the Earth. If you believe the Earth has a shadow. Chode Master Flex says, NASA is a CIA psyop to hide the inner Earth lizard kingdom of Agartha. I was thinking about them today. And if there is an inner Earth kingdom of Agartha, there's no reason to think that we're talking about a hollowed out planetoid. Like, it may be that the area beneath us is far more developed than even what we have here on the surface. And they may well be reptilians. I don't know. But would they want to hide it? Sure. Inner Earth Lizard Kingdom. I've heard of this, and I've been thinking about this other thing too. When it comes to the various myths, the giants, the Nephilim, and how the gods were always covering their faces. And, maybe there's something to it. I don't know. Personally, I don't think so. I think it's more likely stories, just like UFOs. The ruling elite, as part of this false worldview they give you, I think they also need you to have a bunch of irrational fears. So we've been predicting the space station was going to fall, and I still think it is, but this just happened yesterday. NASA mission to space station goes horribly wrong. Astronauts went through some type of a malfunction in their new capsule, and they got stranded 120 miles above the Earth. The high-tech capsule malfunctioned Friday, stranding them, dealing a blow to Boeing, its developer. Now, Boeing had an accident, is in I think it's one of their Boeing Maxes in Ethiopia, and this was on March 11th, which many people thought, Boeing, March 11th, had this big disaster. And so we had kind of had our eyes on Boeing, because we had predicted, as per their stupid numerology, 311, 33. And if you paid attention to 2019, it's quite remarkable. In fact, I have a book on the topic, Guardrails, which deals with this theory, or this way of explaining things that includes what I can only describe as metascripting by the oligarchs. I mean, for example, let's say you take the Bible itself as an example of the ruling elite using a worldview to control the people they rule. That would be a metascript. Well, 20th century has a metascript. That's what it looks like. Same with 21st century. Mikey Bear says, are they getting us prepared for the ISS's demise? Oh yeah, I certainly believe so, for a lot of reasons. I've been talking about this all year. And so when it goes down, I will replay all this stuff on a loop. I mean, for example, Thanksgiving. You saw them floating around telling you what they ate, but what they didn't tell you, and what was reported, the toilet facilities on the space station have been jammed up for months, and they're all wearing diapers. They're wearing diapers on the space station right now. Now, let me go ahead and just do a search for you. Just so you know that, we're following this. Keeping up with the crisis actors isn't only the school shooting fake victims, but we also keep up with the actors. Look at this here. All toilets at the ISS break down. Astronauts are forced to use diapers. And this is, again, Thanksgiving weekend. In fact, I had a scientific fact related to this I want to share with you really quick. It has to do exactly with this topic. And again, it appears to be very factual as far as facts go, if I can find it. I mean, the font looks credible. It's on float. Linda Curtis says diapers is a thing now. Really? Def Mike says, I love the no delay videos when they're talking to people from Earth to space. Yeah, they don't even try anymore, do they? I think they've messed up more than they've done it properly. And so now they're just like, hey, look, we've screwed up 9 out of 10 times. Let's just do it the wrong way and make that the right way. It's not like anybody's paying attention. And that's pretty much how it works at NASA. So here you go. Your science fact of the day. Every spacesuit is literally full of when worn by a trained astronaut. And this would be Mike Foreman. But as you can see right there, yeah, he is 100% full of. I mean, these guys are all just, if you ask me, they're all worse than actors. It's almost like stolen valor, because aren't they in the military? Like it's like basically it's a wing of the military. So it's like stolen valor, like, oh, I've been in a dangerous situation, like such drama queens. Okay, listen to this. NASA expected the capsule to rendezvous with the ISS. The Starliner screwed up, had an off-nominal insertion. Basically, it missed. Now, short on gas, it wasn't able to maneuver to the space station. Do any of you know how the space station manages to stay flush with the Earth? Every single ISS transit you ever see, you see it as though you're underneath it looking up, and it's always just completely parallel to the Earth. Like, how does it remain parallel to the Earth? It's like it's tidally locked, like the moon. Like, that's not possible. If you ask me, at the rate that it's going around the world every 90 minutes, it shouldn't be always belly down to the Earth. I actually think that it should be like a Ferris wheel, where on one direction it's facing, belly to the Earth, and then the next loop on the bottom half of the Earth, rather, it'd be the top, kind of like a Ferris wheel, like a seat on a Ferris wheel. They say they have gyros on there. Control motion or control moment gyros, like 4 of them that keep it level, and little booster jets whenever it gets too low. Yeah, Stranger Days, their lexicon is out of control. Read up what space.com has to say about Uranus. It's like they got 50 articles, these nerds out there laughing. I mean, I really don't even like to go there. I really don't. But there's something really quirky about all these individuals when they write about. I really don't want to read these articles. If you find anything from space.com or space news about the planet Uranus, you will find some headlines that are obviously, meant as jokes, like this one. Something huge went into Uranus and left it absolutely ruined. Metro.co. That was from July. And this is from the day after IFL Science. Uranus had experienced a colossal pounding. A massive object devastated Uranus a long time ago. Uranus is so windy you could hear it from a helicopter. I mean, this is supposed to be science? Like really? And there's no fact checking. Except once. One time, I saw Futurism call out Express over reporting on asteroids for clickbait. And it works. If you start reporting clickbait style, like, oh, it's an asteroid, it's going to hit us on Friday the 13th, you'll get 1 million hits. And you'll sell some you'll get some ad revenue. And they do it all the time. How many Friday 13ths, every time there is one, it's like, yep, you're going to get hit. That was last Friday. They say we're going to get killed on Friday the 13th in 2029. Like we're all going to die that day. Okay, NASA Administrator Bridenstine urged calm. Yeah, Bridenstine's the one who says that you can no longer treat asteroids as fiction. No, we actually have to be scared. So we have Chicken Little urging calm. No way. This guy's a major league fear porner. The NASA administrator declined to say whether Boeing would be able to meet its 2020 deadline for manned flights. Trial and error are the building blocks. And one thing to consider too, when you have these errors, like the rocket blows up on the launch pad, or they have a failure. Remember all those failures that Musk used to have? Well, these are not real failures. It's scripted. And if they did everything perfect, it would be too obvious. So that occasionally they have to, quote, screw up or have something happen just to maintain this idea that it's not all 100% fake. Jim Kilby says, hello IPS, happy Outer Space Day. Yeah, happy solstice. Or happy Saturnalia. Or whatever you want to, call it. Boeing CEO to step down. Now again, it's not as dramatic as I thought. I knew Boeing would be involved. I'm just waiting. Like I'm saying, the space station, if it goes down, it's not real, 1, and 2, should that happen, it'll be really good for what we're doing here. Okay, here's a link to Guardrails. If you haven't read it, I recommend it. Guardrails is basically breaking down into the bare essentials what conspiracy theories actually are and how they're used to preserve the mainstream media narratives. And how, by and large, conspiracy theories are generally false narratives. Def Mike says, I remember the Mars lander in 2018. Hey, right before the Mars lander happened in 2018, JPL hired all kinds of CGI specialists. It's like, well, why do you think that is? I'm like, don't they need, I don't know, engineers, astronauts? No, they need people who are really good at CGI. So this is a serious question. Should chemtrail truthers abstain from air travel? It's a serious question. If you have an answer, go ahead and drop it below. But basically what I want to know is it somehow complicity? Are you complicit? You want to raise awareness about something, right? Well, if you want to raise awareness about something like chemtrails, what better way than to boycott airplanes? And I thought about this because of Greta. She says, I believe in climate change and it's being exacerbated by air travel, so I'm going to rowboat everywhere. So she rowboats across the Atlantic and gives her speech at the UN. I'm like, well, why don't you chemtrailers, instead of flying around to your next chemtrail conference, or chemtrail believers, abstain from flight and say, I'm not going to fly for the same principled objection that Greta has, only I'm worried more about chemtrails than climate change. And I found an article a couple years ago that had to do with this issue. It was some left-winger lamenting the fact that so many right-wingers would make great climate change activists if they weren't so bothered about fake things like chemtrails. Anyway, they don't even need science. They don't even use science. Look, Greta links bushfire crisis to climate change and demands immediate action. This is another psyop. This idea that what they're doing is they take existing phenomenon, natural phenomenon, and then they just dress it up, whether it's the fires or anything else. Commercial airlines are not doing it, says Stranger Days. Okay, see, this is a nice little dodge, though, I think. Because they say, well, no, it's not commercial airlines, it's only the military. Well, look, I get nothing but chemtrails, quote unquote. I get the lines in the skies where I live, and it's not military planes doing it. I don't see military airplanes. So where are the military aircraft dumping the chemtrails? All I see are the trails from commercial airlines. And so no one before has ever made this distinction. So I started asking, which planes are doing it? And before you know it, some will say, oh, it's these drones you don't see. So and just to get some basic level of agreement here, if you believe in chemtrails, if you're a chemtrail truther, which planes are doing it? If it's not commercial airplanes, then what are the trails that I see behind the commercial airplanes? Are those contrails? And which are the ones that have the chemicals in them? Which ones contain the flakka? I think we have to be skeptical about mainstream media. And we have to be also extremely skeptical about not just the mainstream, but the alternative media and alternative narratives that may actually unwittingly bolster the claims of the mainstream. Okay, so I'm going to take off. I have a few things to do today. Space is fake. Thanks for joining. I'm going to be doing more work in 2020 as far as production value. I have a podcast I've been doing. It'll be going into its third year. So I'm going to do pre-recorded podcasts, probably live to Discord, but I'll have those premiering in the mornings, and then I'll be doing live streams in the evenings. So basically, I'm going to improve that, and we also want to go into print. There's a few other things going on, and if you're missing any streams, it's probably because you're not subscribed to Patreon, where $1 cover charge for the month gets you in the door. You get notifications, you get newsletters, and of course you're in the know with regards to everything that's happening. Chief Crow, this is Chief Crow and the Flat Earth Worm. Space is fake. I will see you all later. There's the link to subscribe if you haven't.
Into the black void.
Because you can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
We were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon.
It's not a black void. I mean, it's black, but there's all kinds of polka dots.
Space since 1972. Destroyed all the papers and blew up the Challenger crew. Except for the twinsies. Space is fake AF. Space is fake AF.
Look out into deep space away from the sun, it's the darkest black you can imagine.
Hey, space boy, you broke my rocket man heart. Where are the stars? Is it bright or is it dark? The vacuum of space, oh the tomfoolery.
What happens if you get a leak on that? You have a leak.
Deep over my bubble.
It's hard to comprehend.
Space is fake AF.
Two little bitty O-rings.
Space is fake AF.
It's not what you think, homeboy.
Space is fake AF.
It's all just start doing this.
Space is fake AF.
Research Eddie Bravo. You just have a leak, and what you would do is lose air.
Actually know how to do spiritual warfare online. They're good at it, they're trained in it.
IPS is just sharing the truth.
Yeah, respect to the Infinite Plane Society.
The auto hoaxer revolution.
Auto hoaxer.
The auto hoaxer revolution.
Auto hoaxer. Auto hoaxer.
The auto hoaxer revolution.
We've taken over auto hoax. The term auto hoaxer was meant to attack people who jump to conclusions too fast. Until we realized that no, actually we were right to do it this way.
The auto hoaxer revolution.
Auto hoaxing really has to do with a very tight grasp on the facts of reality. Auto hoaxing is based on logic, and automatically believing what you see from your media sources is actually the opposite of logic.
The auto hoaxer revolution.
Auto hoaxer. Auto hoaxer.
The auto hoaxer revolution.
Auto hoaxer. Auto hoaxer.
The auto hoaxer revolution.
Legitimate auto hoaxing is the only legitimate threat to the mainstream stranglehold over mass perception. The auto hoax meme, the auto hoax concept needs to be mainstreamed, and I think more than ever people will understand it when it's explained properly. Because what we're talking about is shifting the burden of proof back to the live media.